Unspoken Issues.
All right, let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unspoken Issues podcast. It has been a minute since I have had a chance to podcast with my good buddies here. Only got one of them right now. The other one may show up here in a few. But I'm Jesse Starcher. Over there is Dean Compton. Dean Compton, are you ready to talk some comics tonight?
Yeah, I'm ready. Ready to say hello to you. How's it going?
It's going great, man. It's good to have you back on here, dude. It's been too long.
Yeah.
Too long.
Too long. You guys have missed me. You need the star power.
That's right. Damn it. That is right. Yeah. This evening, we're going to be talking G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issues 108 through 115. And I feel like this is either called the Benzheen saga or Benzheen War.
I just call it the one where a bunch of Joes died.
Which is exactly an apt title. It is a perfect title for what's happening
You
here.
just get right down to it.
Tell me why. Obviously, you just kind of let right there. If that said that on the cover, I'd be like, well, I'm picking this one up.
Well, it basically did on some of the covers.
Yeah.
Like the body count rises. Like it was a Friday the 13th movie.
The death of Battle Force 2000. What?
Oh, but could this be the death of Battle Force 2000? Poor Battle Force 2000. I picked this because we talked a little G.I. Joe in the past when we talked Transformers Generation 2. But it's a very seminal storyline in the long-running, that's still running saga of the Real American Hero Joe with Larry Hama. And it's one that I think people refer back to a lot, but there's not been a whole lot of coverage of it. So I thought we'd jump in. Are you a Joe fan?
Yeah, I absolutely love G.I. Joes. You got me a Storm Shadow, remember?
I remember I got you a Storm Shadow.
It's up on my shelf. I am a fan. I had a wrestling fed with my G.I. Joes. Now, as far as watching the cartoon, watched a lot of the cartoon, read a few of the comics back in the late 80s. In a trade, when I was like 10 or 11 years old with a kid that was a little bit older than me, I ended up with G.I. Joe number 3, 4, and 5, along with A-Team, numbers 1, 2, and 3.
Just divesting themselves of military-themed comics. No G.I. Joe, no A-Team.
I can't even remember what I traded them for, but I ended up with those comics. I remember reading some of the late 80s G.I. Joe comics, Special Missions for sure. I have quite a few Special Missions comics. At this point in time, I was not reading. This comes out on the shelf. Our first issue, which is issue 108, is on the shelf in November of 1990. There's some pretty big, and I love having you on here because I feel like you're definitely going to be able to say something about this. We have some pretty big geopolitical stuff going on in the early 90s, the late 90s.
This is the time of the Gulf War. And there are some parallels drawn here. It's not a straight parallel, but it's definitely, I don't know. You're definitely supposed to think about that, the Middle East and the conflicts that were going on at that time. I don't think there's a straight, like, what were the names of these countries? I always like Translucia.
Yeah.
I don't think Translucia is directly any country, and I don't think Benzheen. What was it?
Benzheen, I believe.
Benzheen.
Yeah.
I always forget the name. I wish they just, if you're going to make up a country, just keep it simple. Like, we'll call it like Dirtland. Just call it Dirtland or Mudland or something. Stantopia. But don't come in with me. I got to remember stuff. Translucia. I don't need that. I'm a very busy man. But I definitely mirrored a few real life stuff, particularly with the use of oil as like a bargaining chip. Because if you recall, Saddam Hussein engaged in some eco-terrorism by leaking oil and threatening to leak oil. There's a few parallels there.
All right, the man has arrived. Darry, my goodness, we just got started here, buddy. Dean asked me if I was a fan of the G.I. Joes, if I was reading stuff, if I played with them, if I had watched the cartoon. We got to know about you, sir. We probably talked about this in the past, but why don't you let our listeners refresh their memories about you and the G.I. Joe franchise?
I love G.I. Joe. I was a huge fan of the cartoon and the toys back in its heyday. I didn't read that many of the comics, and when I did, I tend to prefer the show because on the show they're basically like superheroes. The comic is very serious. Now that I'm an adult and I know more about Larry Hama, it makes way more sense. Now that I can appreciate that and I've gone back and read them, I've always enjoyed them. And I was very excited when Dean suggested this run. I hadn't read it, but I had heard of it, and I really enjoyed it. Currently, G.I. Joe comic from Skybound is like every one of my comic shop's favorite pulls. I feel like G.I. Joe is a really great brand, and it's had some great stories over the years.
The whole Energon universe is firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, Source Material's doing the Cobra Commander mini that came out, and then
that's a great miniseries. It's incredible.
Anyway, go ahead, Dean.
So,
I'm sorry.
Darry, let me ask you: you watched the show? You watched the G.I. Joe show? Are you like fight for freedom wherever there's trouble, or you got to get tough?
Is that second one from G.I. Joe or G.I. Joe Extreme?
That's from G.I. Joe. No, G.I. Joe Extreme. We said G.I. Joe Extreme.
Oh, yeah, right. I probably am the latter one just because I'm a little younger.
You're a little younger. That's what I figured.
But I went back. I remember I got very excited when Adult Swim started showing them in reruns. I was able to catch the entire series, all the Steve Gerber written episodes from the very beginning. And I had the movie just because I was such a huge Transformers fan that I wanted that movie as well. And that introduction when they're liberating the Statue of Liberty while that song plays, that lives in my head. At least once a day.
Stuff. G.I. Joe the movie did get released in theaters or no?
I'm not sure that it did.
No, okay. I don't think so. No, because the Transformers
movie, and My Little Pony did terrible.
Okay.
Yeah, Transformers, for all the love we have for it now as millennials and Gen X, I think it did incredibly poorly.
It would have done well if everybody who asked their parents to go had gotten to go. I asked my parents to go, and that didn't get to go.
Yeah.
I went on the 30th
It's actually
anniversary.
Probably true. Yeah.
I went on the 30th anniversary and made up for a very sad lost opportunity for me that I did not get to see Transformers the movie in the theater, and then I did. It's good for me.
Yes.
Some stories have happy endings.
I was just going to say, G.I. Joe is one of those great concepts where you look at it as an adult and it's like, what was this thing about? Every soldier is some little boy's job.
Right.
Yeah, and then they're fighting these terrorists, but they're not really terrorists. They're basically like Cobra's what? It's the war with the Soviet Union that never came, right? It's like a proxy battle being fought on toy shelves. And you learn about S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra later, and it's like, oh, you just stole all the cool parts from all those Kirby comics. I love it. But every time I think about it, I'm like, man, that was a weird one. That had to come out at that time. It had to come out in this country. Everyone in the world understands Transformers. It's a car and it's a robot. It's from space. Great. I'm caught up. More toys. With G.I. Joe, it's like you need the cultural context or else it's like, wait, what is this? Why do I care? What is going on here?
Touching on what Darry said, when Cobra comes out, when G.I. Joe starts, it's easy. Like, people think of terrorism, they think of 9/11, but like there were massive terrorism problems in the 80s, like with people bombing planes. You had the Lockerbie flight. Then you had Muammar Gaddafi, who was supporting terrorism at the time. He did terrible things in regard to that. Although it had to happen at the time that it happened, it's not stopped remaining relevant because we've had a problem with terrorism since then.
Right. And I think we're at 108 for G.I. Joe here. I'm sure some type of war and realism has entered the comic book earlier than this.
People have died prior.
Right. I don't think this is completely absent, but this, I feel like this is one of those situations where the comic isn't going to be reflecting things that kids are going to be drawn to the cartoon. The comic has a lot more. Larry Hama's doing a fantastic job writing this comic and making it accessible for just about anybody that wants to read it. Using these real world influences and events, I think it shocked some people at the time. I have some letters here that people wrote in the back of a few of these issues to see how it divided a few people. But yeah, you got the people that this is a kid's comic, or this is a comic about some people that I've grown to love, and now you're going to kill them off. It's going to happen. It happens in this storyline.
I was at a panel with Larry Hama. I guess it would have been, I can't remember the year now, 2017. And like what he said was, And they talked about this storyline, and he wanted to kill some Joes. He's like, because it wasn't fair to keep portraying war like only a few people on the edges had died. General Flag, Dr. Venom, Cobras had died, but bad guys don't necessarily count in the same way. Good guys could die in war, and they could die senselessly. And it wasn't fair to real life veterans, and it wasn't fair to the realities of war to continue to portray them as like that all the good guys always come home.
Every time I've heard Larry Hama talk about this book or read an interview he's done, what always comes off to me, and he might have actually said this, but G.I. Joe, for all of its success, it's really an anti-war comic in a lot of ways. I feel like I'm pretty sure Hama's a veteran, and he put that in here. He's like, it's almost like Tolkien, right? He went through this, and he's not looking to glorify it any more than he has to continue to tell his narrative. It's about struggle and loss. Like, these characters go through. I haven't read the entire run. I think he's still writing it at Sky.
It is still happening.
It is, right? This is unparalleled, right? And this is one continuous story of characters that he invented. At the end of the day, you're going to look at this thing, and it's like, oh no, you're telling us why war is bad and why any glory and perception we might have to the contrary, especially when we're children, is not a good thing, and certainly not a thing you should take with you as an adult. That was the thing that always most fascinated me about this, is people rarely come home to an uncomplicated victory. Right. Everything in Joe has those layers. And yeah, you want to treat them as figures. They are action figures. They're always going to be action figures. But if you actually read this book, it's like, oh no, there's something else going on here. You really do walk away with a very clear message.
G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issues 108 through 111. The journey begins deceptively calm in issue number 108, a story titled Apparent Conclusions. Now, that title may promise closure, but it's going to deliver catastrophe. In New York, Larry Hama brings long-simmering arcs to a gentle boil. Scarlet awakens from her coma. Snake Eyes reunites with her and Storm Shadow, and the ninja contingent finally finds a moment of peace. Snake Eyes is able to stabilize Storm Shadow's injured mind by using a Rashikaje method. He even confronts Cobra Commander at Cobra headquarters in a wordless standoff that ends in the commander's retreat. They even have the time to rescue a child by the name of Marina that gets adopted into Wade Collins' home. But while the ninjas find peace, the soldiers are walking into hell. Lieutenant Falcon leads a strike force in Trucial Abysmia, a thinly veiled stand-in for the pre-Gulf War Middle East, targeting Cobra terror drones. The operation goes wrong fast. Surrounded by Hiss tanks and Cobra artillery, with communications destroyed, the team is isolated and outgunned. Duke, ever the leader, is forced to surrender. But what follows would burn the name Trucial Abysmia into the memory of every G.I. Joe fan. In issue 109, Death in the Desert, this story breaks the unspoken contract that long governed the series. That Joe team members were relatively safe. Here and now, they are not. A single misinterpreted command from Cobra Commander leads to an execution order. Enter the Saw Viper, designed into a brutal machine gun menace who unloads on a ravine where the Joes are being held captive, instantly ending the lives of several of our heroes. By the end of their run-in with this enemy, only 3 Joes remain: Duke, Falcon, and Cross Country. They escape with the help of a mobile battle bunker. And while this fight may be over, these scars are permanent. Among the fallen, Doc, the team's moral and medical compass; Breaker, an original tech specialist from 1982; Quick Kick, the fan-favorite martial artist; Crazy Legs, Thunder, Heavy Metal, and Crankcase. All dead. No one is safe. Their deaths are direct, shocking, and final. With the world watching, Hama pivots. In issues 110 and 111, the action shifts to Benzheen, where Cobra has moved into position under the guise of stabilizing an allied nation. But this ally, the Emir of Benzheen, isn't a victim. He's a corrupt power broker more concerned with oil fields and personal art treasures than the lives of those fighting on his behalf. In issue 111, Probe and Feint, this introduces New Blood, Ambush, Cool Breeze, and Recoil, fresh recruits sent to replace the dead. Meanwhile, the Ninja Squad returns to the field. Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, Scarlet, and Jinx, operating covertly inside Benzheen. Their presence foreshadows the rise of the Ninja Force, a shift in the team's composition and tactics. But the most haunting image of this arc isn't an explosion or a ninja duel. It's Duke, driving through the war zone with the bodies of 7 fallen Joes stacked atop a missile rack. A meat wagon rolling through the desert, carrying the cost of war in plain sight.
Larry Hama does a great job with the book and everything, but there's still this underlying thing as these Joes are getting boxed in that it's like a toy. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in the pulverizer. Duke's in the Warthog. The guns they're using, like Lieutenant Falcon has a shotgun. That's what he comes with, and he's using a shotgun. There are little tidbits like that. I can only imagine, having read this at the time. I've read it several times now, but it would have blown me away, even as a 12-year-old or 11-year-old. I would have been like, wow, I couldn't believe that Joes die. Also, they kill a lot of different Joes. A few of them through here are like they're vehicle drivers, like Thunder drove the Slugger, and Heavy Metal drove the Mauler, and Crankcase drove the Oststriker. But then they also, which those guys are cool, but most vehicle drivers aren't anybody's favorite.
Right.
Side note, my favorite G.I. Joe is Frostbite, who drives the Snowcat.
Good choice.
They killed some guys who probably weren't near and dear to too many people's hearts, but like Breaker was an original Joe, and Doc was a super favorite of like most people. They killed an array of Joes to where it made it feel random, and it made it feel very real, like it could happen to anybody. Although, of course, Duke walks away. Can't kill Duke.
Don't do that.
There's going to be a new Duke next year. We can't kill him.
Yeah, let's see. Our tally here, I think, is Doc, Breaker, Quick Kick, which that isn't like immediate. That's later on. Like there's a few that survive, and then we have a bit of a standoff at some point, and they get killed. There's some more Joes that end up getting killed, but Quick Kick dies, which that's a big deal for me.
That's a big favorite.
That was one of my favorites from the cartoon for sure. Crazy Legs, Thunder, Heavy Metal, and Crankcase, like you were talking about there. Yeah, the gloves are off. We are definitely not pulling punches here. There are Joes actually dying. And yeah, you're right. If this was something that I was reading contemporaneously, I would have been the same way. I'd have been like, wow, the early 1990 Jesse Starcher definitely wouldn't have been expecting this. In about a couple years, I would have been, because at that point, we're getting into the Image era, the Extreme era shortly after that. But there's a lot of stuff that's going down here that makes this book seem like it's touching on real things here. So, yeah.
Including middle management not understanding what upper management actually meant, because upper management is completely useless. I read this for the first time, and I couldn't believe that the entire thing was predicated on a joke you would see in an old Looney Tunes cartoon. I thought I was missing something. It's funny too, because everything you guys said is absolutely true. I can't imagine having read this at the time and reading it now. I was like, wait, that's why they die? Like, again, people die in war, of course. I'm glad he wants to show that, and I'm glad he got permission to do it, because every single character here continues to be an action figure. To have it come down to take care of them, and the Weird Circus acrobat twins are like, oh yeah, we'll take care of them. And he's like, oh, well, he meant kill them, right? And the other guy's like, yeah, obviously. And it's like, what? Obviously? You've never killed a Joe in the entire time you've been doing this. That genuinely shocked me. It's the inverse of in Transformers, the movie, where they kill the entire original G1 line. And that's shown to be like one person shooting the other. It really caught me off guard, but I thought it was great.
Jazz lives.
Jazz does live. Jazz does live.
Yeah, Jazz and Soundwave live. My favorites. They knew where their bread was buttered.
That's true. Hey, man, you can't get rid of Soundwave. He continues to be the best, even in the current Skybound book.
I got some notes here. Let's just, real quick, I'm going to throw out the Saul Viper here. Dean, you got any thoughts on the Saul Viper? You know, he's our guy that pulls the trigger.
I had the Saul Viper figure, and he comes with a very large gun. That was very accurate for him to come with this giant gun. They make the guy as repugnant as possible, which makes it even easier for somebody who's just shooting people in a ditch to root against them, although it was already pretty easy. But you got to give him props for that. Just somebody that you're really, really ready for the Joes to shoot as soon as possible.
I love when they take these random characters and they're just like, all right, now you're a main character. Because I feel like any other comic would have said, oh, we have 500 characters. We're going to use this as an opportunity to take one of the named characters and give them the spotlight. What does he do? He turns around and he focuses on this random nameless character. And I love it because to Dean's point, he's this giant guy. He's this stereotype of the time and he fits perfectly for the story. He carries you all the way through. I thought it was great. It's one of the things I love most about this story. You never know what face in the crowd, what henchman is suddenly going to become super important to the plot. Hama's said this before, but he doesn't like plotting far ahead. You know, he's of the school where it's like, I start writing the issue, I finish the issue, and then I start the next one. A lot of the times I feel like he just gets involved in what he's been writing, and he's like, oh, I want to follow this side character, and I can do that because I'm in charge of this book. The figures sold well this quarter. We're going to follow the Saw Viper. Man, I am here for it. I thought it was a great move.
You think about the Cobra characters, like Wild Weasel, the twins, Zartan. A lot of them are dead right now after the Battle of Cobra Island. A few of them are going to get better. Like Zartan was dead. He's going to get better. But they still think Firefly is dead. Continuity-wise, I think some of them are out. But then also, you don't really want to see Copperhead shoot the Joes in cold blood because secretly the Cobras are pretty fun and pretty cool. And you don't want to take that away from the named Cobras. Who wants to see Scrap Iron do this? No, you'd rather see a faceless guy do it, that you don't lose. Some of the Destro couldn't do this because he's noble and everything. You don't want to sully a character by having them be the ones that violate like every Geneva Accord.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, this guy obviously has a personality. If they would have assigned a Cobra Bat to do it or something like that, and that's even less faceless. But yeah, I understand the use of this character, a big nameless guy, to have the Joes like, okay, we're going to get our revenge at some point. And that's what we're hoping by the end of what just happened here is that somebody's going to get, we're hoping Snake Eyes does. We're hoping maybe Duke is the one that I'm rooting for to punch this dude's face in and then maybe something more to happen.
One of the things in these issues that was very poignant was Viper's attitude. Other Vipers don't want to do it.
No.
And twins don't want to do it. They're like, this is ridiculous. It's an order nobody wants to carry. He's like, I'll do it. Fine. I think it just goes to show you that, like, in the military, there's Larry Hama perceives a certain amount of honor, even on the enemy side. There's still most people aren't going to go against certain mores.
Right. So just real quick, I'll read the file card here. Assault Viper is equipped with a gyro-stabilized, cryogenically cooled mini chain gun, scoped with an infrared night vision, auto-ranging optical sighting system. This means that he has a highly accurate, low-malfunction machine gun that doesn't burn out the barrel during intense rapid-fire bursts. It's nothing for him to zone in on a flea nestled in heavy brush over 800 yards away in pitch darkness and pick it off in one shot. And our quote here is, you definitely don't want to get pinned down by a Saw Viper at night. His weapon has an integral sound suppressor, an effective flash inhibitor, and a powerful image intensifier. With all that, you won't even know you're being shot at until you hear the sonic boom from the bullet whipping past your ear.
You're being shot at until Doc puts his head up and gets it blown right off.
There's some stuff happening in our first issue where they're helping a young girl find a home, if I remember correctly. Marina, I believe, is her name. She goes into an adopted family, I believe. But there is some dialogue that happens. A young boy sees Marina and goes, I'm Sean and this is Heather. Want to play Nintendo? We got the X-Men. The X-Men is a horrible game.
It's a terrible Nintendo
game.
But like, you didn't know shit then, okay? You didn't know, like, you'd have to read a magazine for it to be horrible. Sometimes you'd know. And the other thing is sometimes it didn't matter because you would rented the game. You had to, it's the game you had that weekend. By God, you're going to play it.
What, at the time, legitimately, we're playing Nintendo and we are reading comics, and for those two worlds to intersect by having a game called the X-Men,
Yeah.
count me in.
I loved the Punisher game.
Yeah, buddy, that's good stuff.
It's funny too, because when it started, it was very much in Marvel continuity. And at some point, he decided, like, oh, I absolutely don't want to be bothered with that. I read it as, like, oh, the kids are playing the X-Men game, and the X-Men are fictional here. But there was a point when this whole thing started where G.I. Joe was working alongside S.H.I.E.L.D., where the X-Men existed. I thought that was interesting because at first it was like, well, we know there are fictional X-Men comics that make them look really bad. It was this game about mowing down mutant terrorists. I thought that was funny.
I guess it is this point where one of my notes here says that the moment Duke decides to let the Saw Viper go, I was hoping that at least Duke was going to take some type of revenge or do something to the Saw Viper. And of course, and he has to let the Saw Viper go. He can't take him prisoner. And that's what sucked.
Well, they're also on an illegal mission. It's like you look at the far, like, hey, we're attacking from another country. We're driving into this country. We're blowing these things up, and then we're coming back. And we don't really have permission to be here.
True.
You can't take a prisoner because you're not really supposed to be there.
Fair point. Fair point. And my only other note here is Hooded Cobra Commander is my favorite Cobra Commander. I love that rendition. I do not. I don't know. Darry, you're a helmet guy.
Well, the first helmet, the mirrored helmet,
gotcha.
not that later weird underwater thing he wears. My favorite Cobra Commander is always the mirrored one. I don't know if this was intentional, but I always loved it where it was like, well, we never see his face other than in the stupid movie, but it's always like, no, it's a reflection, right? It's like, what's the worst thing you could think of? What's the worst part of yourself? You're going to see that when you look at him.
Right.
And it reminded me very much of the great Steve Ditko, who drew characters like The Question with full face mask, or Mr. A, or even Spider-Man himself was the first one to have a full covering like that. It reminded me of that, like, what do you present on it? What's the worst thing in the world that's under that mask? What does that Chris Latta voice guy really look like? I always thought that was good. Plus, the hood always creeped me out because it just reminds me too much of the Klan. I don't know if that was intentional. I think now they've actually banned it outright for that. I think I remember reading that.
Really did they?
Like they don't. Yeah, I've read they don't use it.
Yeah, you will not see that hood in Skybound. I think for the most part, I do think that was said somewhere. That might have been a Hasbro directive as well. But my favorite is that mirrored. I thought that was such a cool design. Really, I love it.
That's a good argument. Dean, you got any thoughts on your favorite commander? Cobra Commander?
You know, Serpentor's really cool, man.
Yeah, he is. I love Serpentor.
Talking about the guy who runs Cobra, right? Serpentor?
Yeah.
I like them both. I think it's cool. I think Cobra Commander should have different looks. I like the mirror helmet probably a little more because I think it's a little more fantastic. And also, Cobra is a fascist organization. And like, I think they're trying to show not just like what's the worst in you, but also like we are you. Like I am you. Like let's get you subsumed in some cult-like ideology.
Oh man. All right. Well, that's all my notes there. Dean, did you have anything else for Darry?
No, I think that was it.
Darry, you got anything?
Man, you get your money's worth. These comics came out before decompressed storytelling was really a big thing. But each one of these issues is dense as hell. I was exhausted reading these things. The characters, even from panel to panel, there's action, movement, dialogue, subplots, and everything else. It's like, this is great, man. There's so many times where I'll read a 6-issue arc or something that's come out today, and it's like, nothing happened, or it's all exposition. And this you read, whether or not I even like the story, there's so much going on. I got to sit there, I got to process it. And I really appreciated that. Whether it's just Hama's style being a pro for as long as he's been, or specifically the take on this book, I really appreciated it. Reading through these was a dream because it was like, oh man, there is so much here. And it's enjoyment to go through it and to follow the story with these characters. I wanted to point that out.